Okay, let's get started on the first chapter. Do realize that if you go to table of contents, there is a preliminary chapter that just goes over the user interface of Illustrator, and this could be very helpful if you'd like to go through it. You do not have to turn it in as an assignment though, but this is pretty helpful. The first assignment will be Project 1, Campground Icons, and what we're going to be doing is turning something from a raster into a vector. So in your student files, we're going to be using the ones called camping. You will have to unzip that. For PC users, you just right-click and say extract all. Once you've extracted it, you'll see that there are all these little icons. If we look at one of them, you'll see that it's very small and it is made up of pixels. If we zoom into it, it's not very good quality. You can see it's all aliased around the edges. So if we were trying to use this on a billboard or a website, it would not look good. So we need to change that into a vector, and that's the idea behind this chapter. So if you go to course content and assignment, here is this week's chapter. And of course, make sure that you have done the attendance activity already. Here's the video you're probably watching right now. For this assignment, you're just going to follow along, and I do want you to turn in the Adobe Illustrator file. Make sure to name it with your last name and Illustrator 1. The book is going to have you call it Icons, and that's fine. You can call it what the book says, but before you turn it in, you need to change it to your last name, Illustrator 1, or your last name, Camping. Do be aware that there is another teacher that we found on YouTube that does it step-by-step along with the book. If you want to use that, you can. Here it is. It's Mr. Ivy, and he will go along page by page so you can follow him. If you'd like to, that's fine. So let's go over a basic idea of what you're learning this week. When you open up Illustrator, this is what it's going to look like. You can either click New File or File New, and it's going to come up with this. Realize that you have a bunch of presets for web, print, that kind of stuff. Most of the time for bookwork, you're going to be using print. And letter just is a basic piece of paper, a basic size piece of paper that we're used to. It is going to default to points, which is what a lot of print people use. Realize that 72 points is 1 inch when it is printed out. So you can see that a piece of paper would be 612 points by 792 points. So for the first assignment, you can just kind of leave this, bleed, all this stuff is fine. Like I said, the book does want you to call it Icons, so you can call it Icons if you want, or you can go ahead and name it the way I need it for when you turn it in. Say Camping or Illustrator 1 is fine. Realize that I have to grade all of these, and if they're all called Icons, you may get a grade for somebody else's because it's called Icons too, so make sure to put your name on it. When we create this, you're going to see the basic interface of Illustrator. I am in the Essentials Classic workspace, Window, Workspace, Essentials Classic. And of course, you can go right here to Essentials Classic. Here's our toolbar, and remember that if you can't find a tool, it may be hidden. You can just right-click or put your mouse, click and hold. So there are some things underneath. For instance, we're going to be making rectangles. If you click and hold, you can see there's a rectangle and a rounded rectangle tool. Sometimes you're going to be using one or the other. The next thing I want you to see is down here, these are the default fill and stroke. Fill means what is the shape filled with. Right now it's going to be white. And stroke is what is the line that is around the stroke going to be filled with. So this is the default. Click right here and it's going to know that is going to be white with black. Down here, it kind of shows us this is what's inside. You can either fill it with a color, you can fill it with a gradient, or you can fill it with nothing. So we're going to leave it on the default right now, and let's just grab the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. So you can see we have a rectangle. It is white with black. Couple things that have appeared here is in the properties panel, you will see here are the XY coordinates and all kind of stuff that it is set up for us. Where the XY coordinates is where is this on the screen. The width and the height is how big is it. So it's saying it's 353.5 pixels. And right here, once again, it's filled with white and has a stroke of black. Because it is still selected, you can see it's got a selection around it. We could change the fill. There's 3 places to change it. You can change it here, you can change it up here, or you can change it down there. So let's go ahead and change it right here. If I click on that, I can make it pink inside. Or I can click right here, change it. I can change the color of the stroke. Now, I can't see that stroke very well, so there's a couple places we can make it bigger or smaller, right here or right here. Let's go ahead and make this, say, 5. I can see that a lot bigger now. And then once again, let's go back down here. If I wanted to, say, put a gradient inside, now it's got a gradient, or nothing. Now you can see, if I move it over to the side, that there's actually nothing inside of it. Now let's talk about how did I move this over here. This is the main selection tool. So you'll notice that there are 2 selection tools. I call them the black one and the white one. So the first one, the black one, is the regular selection tool, and then the white one is called the direct selection tool. The difference is with the selection tool, you obviously could pick things up and move them. You could grab the corner and make them smaller or bigger. Now, let's say you wanted to make it smaller or bigger and you want to keep it the same. You don't want to accidentally make it too thin. I'm going to undo that by Control Z. That's the graphic designer's best friend. If I want to make it smaller and keep it the same aspect ratio, I can click Shift and hold it down while I'm doing that. And do you see that it keeps it the same? So that's kind of a cool thing. I could also rotate it from here. So the selection tool is going to do the entire shape. I've kind of messed that up. I'm going to hit Control Z again. There we go. If I get the direct selection tool, it is just going on each of these little points. If I click on that point, you see how it's turned blue. I can now just get that one point. Let's kind of make like a little Star Trek looking thing here. Oh, that is beautiful. And of course, I want to flip it around because it's Star Trek. So I'm going to grab the selection tool again, and let's flip it upside down. Not too bad. Now let's go ahead and fill that with a color. There we go. Now, of course, you remember if you want to zoom in and out to see what you're doing better on these points, Alt and scroll your mouse. So now we can see the points better. And of course, the space bar will get the hand tool so we can move it around. Now let's go grab that direct selection tool again, and I can see the points a little bit better. So select a point, and now I can move the point around. You might also see this little tool. That is the corner point tool. It's going to make it rounded. So you have the direct selection, the selection, and the corner point tool we've learned. To go ahead and make this back to normal, you can just double click on the hand, and it's going to bring everything back. If you're zoomed way in and you want to go back to normal, just double click on the zoom right there. So double click on the hand, double click on the zoom, we're back to normal. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that by clicking the selection tool and just hit my delete key. Let's make some rectangles like they're going to have you do. Get the rounded rectangle. Now, if we just kind of drew a rectangle, it would be any size. Like, I don't know what size this is. So I want to undo that, Control Z. This time, I'm just going to click once anywhere on the screen. And it's going to pop this up, and I can tell it exactly what size I want it to be. Now, the book wants it to be 1.75 inches. Unfortunately, we are in points, but that's okay. Just type in 1.75 space IN. And when you click to the next one, notice it has changed it to points for us. So let's do that again. 1.75 space IN. And now we have a perfectly sized rectangle. It does want you to have 12 points. That's for the corner radius because this is a rounded rectangle. Boom. Now I have a rectangle. Pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and move this up to the corner. Now, another way we could make a rectangle is to click Alt and then drag your mouse to the side. And when you let go of your mouse, then let go of Alt, and now we have 2. You could do that with more than one. So let's grab 2 of them at the same time by clicking and dragging. So we have 2 selected. Now when we click Alt and drag, it did both of them at the same time. So let me get this a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to kind of mess this up for a second to explain a line. So I'm going to get the Align panel, Window, Align. Let's move this over to the side. Okay, so there's several ways. You can either align it to the artboard, to the selection, or to a key object. So I'm just going to grab this one. If I tell it to align to the artboard and I tell it to center it, it's going to center it within the whole piece of paper, the whole artboard. But let's back up. If I select two of them and I tell it to align to the selection, it's going to align these two together. So if I tell it to center, it's centered them to themselves. Now, align to key object means, let's say this is going to be our key object, and we know we want it to start right there. And we want to align all of these things with that one right there. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to say align to key object, and I'm going to tell it this right here is my key object by clicking it. Do you see how it's got blue around it? Now, when I say vertical align, it's going to align them all with where that was. Now realize there is a difference between align and distribute. Let me kind of this is messed up. You see how this one is not, they're not equidistant apart. So if I select all of them, that is what distribute is going to do. You see it distributed between each one. So that's the difference in what's happening with align. And align panel is very useful. You will be using it with the book this week. Okay, so I've got this set up a little bit better. The book is going to have you make something like this, and it actually uses this color, I think, and black. Okay, so you're going to have something similar to this. I think you have a 3-point font. Yep, it's going to look like that. And we need to take those icons that I showed you a minute ago and place them in that. So let's talk about how to do that. I'm going to go File, Place, and I'm going to go find my student files for this week. It's camping. And I'm just going to grab the first one, but make sure before you hit place, you click on template, because we're just going to use this as a template to draw on top of. So let me click place, and it has put it on the screen for us. I want you to look at the layers panel. So the layers panel is right here, and you'll notice that we have one layer, which is where we have been drawing all of these rectangles or squares. If I open it up, you can see here is each rectangle. It's all separated. If you want to select one, you can click right here, and you see that one is now selected. Of course, the eyeballs would mean turn it on or off as far as visual. So it's still there. I just can't see it. That's what the eyeballs do. You can select them by clicking right there. So we have the first layer, which is all of these little things we've made. And then it has created a new layer for us, which is called the template. And notice that it is locked. That is because we're just using it as a reference. So I'm going to unlock it real quick and put it up here. Fortunately, I can't see it. Why do you think I can't see it? Well, that's because it is behind everything else. So I'm going to move it above so I can see it. Look at that. Okay, so that's our first one. I'm going to go ahead and lock that again, because what the book's going to have you do is create a new layer right here, create new layer. And that is the one that you are going to draw on. So what I would do is lock both of these, because you're going to start drawing on this. For instance, in this one, we use the pencil tool and we go back to default. I'm going to turn off fill so I can see what I'm doing. And you're literally going to draw this. Now, I'm not going to do a really good job because I just want to do it really quickly for you guys. You're going to do something kind of like that. Do you see that I drew that on top of there? When I'm done, I can just turn this off, and now I have my new icon. Another thing that it's going to have you do is once you get this everything drawn, you're going to need to organize it. I am going to look at your organization. I'm going to open up your project and see that you have organized it, because that's important for this assignment. So don't forget to organize things after you're done drawing. This will take you a little while until you get used to it. Like I said, if you want to follow along with Mr. Ivy, you can. When you're finished, it's going to look like this. Notice that everything has its own separate organization folder. I can turn them on and off individually. This way I could use this in a more sophisticated artwork because it's all together as one. So this part is important. I don't know why it has you do these, because they're not necessary, but just leave them turned on. That is project one. Have fun with it.